Hello, everybody. My name is Alistair Dragovic, and yeah, it's been a bit. Just haven't really been trying to get a backlog going because YouTube does not care. So, blah. Anyway, charismatic friend sent me a very suspicious looking thingamajig. So, I'm gonna open it up and play it. The title is It Gets So Lonely Here. Yeah. Apparently it's a visual novel. Just from noticing it's, in Ren'Py or something. Anyway. Okay, I am running through a forest. Late at night, the sky is as black as pitch. There's nothing to light your way, save for the moon's milky glow. But its rays cannot reach you. Not properly. The trees which surround you, shutting out of the earth like eerie monuments to a foreign god, are blotting out most of the light. You cannot see where you are going. Even if you had commenced your flight at a more sensible hour. However, the light of the sun to aid you, it would be of little use. You do not know where you're going. You have no map, no route, no plan. You are running like a frightened animal, anxious and nervy, with no destination in mind. You have no desire as you run, save to escape. You cannot let yourself be caught. If that were to happen, you are certain that you would be ruined. You have no choice, therefore, but to keep going, on and on and on, though your feet are screaming at you for mercy. You have no idea how long you've been running. Time's begun to blend together. It's lost all meaning. Something sharp snags at the hem of your skirt, but you do not have the luxury to pause and examine what has happened. Instead, you tug. Your skirt tears. Sounds splitting through the forest, and you stumble forwards with a shocked gasp. You are free, but at what cost? Your skirt's been irrevocably damaged. It might be too late to worry about such trivial matters now, though. You do not start running again, and soon, she will catch you. Then your life will be over. You do not know if she is still following you. You do not want to risk looking over your shoulder. You are to see her silhouetted beneath a tree, look at you with that sickly sweet smile which once ensnared you. You would lose what little nerve you possess. Your legs would lock up, and your blood would freeze in your veins. Then you would crumple. You would fall, but you would not hit the ground. She would be there to catch you. Did she not promise, when you made that contract, that you would never be alone? You'd like to take back that silly wish of yours. But it is too late for that. It is too late for a lot of things. All you can do is run. You run, and run, and run, while icy fog swirls about your feet. It is cold enough to sap the heat from your body, and you shook from it. It feels as though you are drowning. It feels as though you are being buried alive. Your knees and your shins, meanwhile, are bleeding. You cannot endure much more of this. But if you value your own life, you must. You run, and you run, and you run until, at long last, you reach a fork in the road. There are 3 paths which split off through the forest. Well, 4 if you count the path down which you came. You can't exactly double back on yourself, though. Not when you have put so much effort into running forwards. You can only press on. 3 paths are signposted, which is something of a strange sight given you are so deep in the forest. Dark though it might be, you've grown accustomed to the shadows, and just about pick out the writing on this old, dilapidated signpost, curved and slanted though it is. Your fate, if you'll forgive me for sounding cliche, is in your hands. And with that, I'll save. Now I wonder, which path will you take? Well, let's see here. Alright, very strong, very atmospheric start with the music. Oh, sorry. Been a bit tired. Ooh. Let's see here. Clearly we are trying to run away from something. A castle does not lead to an escape. Shore does not lead to further escape. It leads to the ocean. But the village might have another way out. So, you want to go to the village? Oh, it seems like the narration's a separate character. Good idea. Let us see what further trials await you there. This night is far from over, as much as you wish it was. And there's still much and more to discover. I wonder what will happen next. You follow the path which leads to the village, supporting yourself on weary, aching limbs which feel ready, at a moment's notice, to snap at the knee beneath the burden of your weight. The soles of your feet are screaming at you. You need to lie down and quickly. The only hope as you continue to run that you'll find a suitable residence in which to rest at the village. You do not know what will await you at the village, but you have visions as you run of a quaint scenic settlement, all thatched cottages with sloping roofs. Surely there will be a kindly peasant who will be willing to put a young runaway for a few nights. You can imagine, too, the face of this kindly peasant. The fairy tales you read in abundance as a small child. She will be broad-shouldered and ruddy-faced, with dull brown hair crammed beneath a cap. Her arms will be sturdy from many years of washing clothes and milking cows, but she will be kind to you, compassionate, just like a mother. You do not know what mothers are like. They hardly ever spoke to yours. You're only guessing. You're not a complete fool, however, despite your tendency to daydream. And you do have a few reservations. Peasants do not, as you know from your voracious reading, have much money, nor do they have much food. It might be hard to convince a resident of the village, even the kindly washerwoman of your fantasies, to take in a complete stranger. Still, you must try. That's all you can do, really. Okay. Well, it's silent. I'm gonna let myself have some thoughts. This very much sounds like we are an aristocrat or ex-aristocrat, which kind of explains the somewhat implied demon summoning contract. I'm just assuming it's a demon summoning contract, considering how assured we are of this person's supernatural ability to find and catch us and keep a wish via contract. But who knows? It could be a misleading metaphor, or it could be something else that my imagination just does not find. That said, I am looking forward to, figuring out how the situation came to be in the first place more than I am what the situation exactly is. Strangely enough. Although, finding out the precise situation would also be helpful in, escape. Okay, so you run to the village. Also, who is the narrator? Is the narrator just an omnipresent piece that just happens to have an opinion, or... Anyway, so you run to the village. takes some time before you finally emerge from the woods. Finally you manage it. How much time, you ask? Cannot answer that. Did I not say that time had begun to lose all its meaning? Horseman is behind you now, at least, and all the awful nightmares which dwelt within it. It is still cold, though. It's still foggy. It is still dark, too. The sun is yet to rise. You can see the moon more clearly now, though, as it hangs above your head, round as any pearl, or orb, or crystal ball. Ooh, interesting. The moonlight shines down upon the village, nestled among the hills, like a diorama. Hope anew bubbles within you. You finally made it. Surely not but your salvation awaits you. You follow the winding dirt path to the village, looking this way and that. But your hope, such a precious, fragile thing, soon begins to fade. The village, up close, does not look half as welcoming as you had imagined. There are cottages, yes, but they are in a state of disrepair. There are holes in the roofs, and holes in the windows. Most of the doors are tightly shut, but others are gaping open. The kitchens beyond them even darker than the night sky which shrouds you. There are no lights in any of the windows, and neither can you see any people, insomniacs like you, at them. You cannot hear anything either, beyond the sound of your own footsteps, and the low, mournful sighing of the wind. The village is quiet. Quite quiet. Eerily so. It is immediately obvious, even to a naive girl such as yourself, that something terrible must have befallen this village. You know before you try your luck at one of the houses that nobody will answer you. There will be no kindly red-armed washerwoman to welcome you here, no matter how much you wish for it. But that does not stop you from wishing regardless. Your knuckles rub smartly against the wooden door. Your efforts, however, soon prove to be in vain. There's nobody here to hear your entreaties. How very sad. Boo-hoo. You try another door, then another, but the result is the same regardless of how many doors you rap upon. Nobody answers you. How could they? There's nobody there. Once again, you have found yourself all alone. At least you have found some dwellings in which you can rest your weary head. Will you utilize one of these cottages for your purpose? Nobody's here. You might as well. But no, an abandoned cottage. It's not what you're looking for. You would far rather have companionship, would you not? Oh, that's ominous. Bravely, you swallow your tears. You wipe your eyes, the back of your arm in a well-practiced motion, then inhale. You square your shoulders, and you keep on going. Surely the village cannot be completely deserted. There must be one person here, at the very least, who can help you. That's what you're thinking as you resume your search. You flit from cottage to cottage, precious little to show for your determination, until you make yet another discovery. This village, with its square thatched cottages bathed in moon's glow, has a church. Well, of course it has a church. The villagers who once dwelt here were not godless heathens. Not that their faith did them all that much good in the end. Still, the sight of the church soothes your overtaxed heart. You are so focused on your fantasies of a kindly washerwoman taking you in that you did not pause to entertain the fancy of a kindly nun doing much the same. All hope is not lost. You approach the church, which seems to tower over you despite it being so humble. The church is a small one, but it is stout and sturdy, and must be, for it has withstood centuries, forever standing sentinel on this hill, like a relic from a bygone era. The church does not have any stained glass windows, but it does not need them. Even without more luxurious trappings, the church still exudes an aura of dignified solemnity. The stone building is fringed by a sizable graveyard, one which occupies the rest of the hilltop and some of its sloping sides. The graves, which have been planted by generations of wardens, are hewn from a similar stone to that which the church's walls are made of. Some of the gravestones are shaped like lozenges, while others are shaped like crosses. Lozenges? A handful of headstones are even shaped like angels, though these are few and far between. There are very few people in a village such as this one who can afford such luxurious final resting places. You look at the tombstones with an almost childlike curiosity, forgetting in your examination of the visceral, heart-rending fear which gripped you as you ran through the forest. You're out of the woods now, and you have subconsciously already begun to relax. Try to read the names hewn into the myriad tombstones, but it is dark, and you are tired. Some of these graves are very, very old indeed. You strain your eyes, but you do not have much luck in this endeavor. Oh well. Such superfluous details are not important. You eventually tire of examining the graves and turn. This graveyard is an expansive one. Unusually so, given the village itself is so small. How can it boast so many corpses? There is much to explore. You walk about the perimeter of the church, casting your gaze first here, then there, then everywhere, consumed as you are by your immense, all-encompassing curiosity. And, as you do so, you see her. She looks like an ordinary girl, small and scrawny, just like yourself, but she is much, much more than her unremarkable appearance might suggest. Ooh, we find a first character. Oh, Bones. Oh, this looks very neat. It's cool. For some moments, you observe her, hiding all the while in the shadow cast by the church, much like a furtive lizard clinging against a rocky edifice to shroud itself from the sun. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. To let you know why that's hilarious, my friend, sent this to me with the words, like some manner of vile and twisted lizard, eyes you from the shadows just within your perception, scuttling forward and devouring more of the room's precious space as I slowly approach. So yeah, charismatic friend. Strong! Charismatic friend has a way with words, we shall say. There's no sunlight here, though. There's only the night sky, the stars, and the moon. Okay, I'm gonna have to turn down this music. It is so loud. Okay. Sorry about that. Beneath the moon's light, a silvery implement the girl's clutching shimmers. It takes you a few moments to see what it is that the girl's clutching in her hands. It's not until you see her manipulating its sharp edge biting into the earth that you understand. It's a shovel. This girl is standing in an isolated corner of the churchyard late at night, and she is digging a grave. Well, you suppose she could always be digging a hole for the sake of it, but her work seems much too precise for this to be the result of mere whimsy. It's hard for you to see her face given the distance between the pair of you, but her posture is one that speaks of supreme concentration. She moves slowly, mechanically, like a woman on a mission, driving the end of her shovel into the earth, over and over. Her emotions are regular enough to be repetitive. There's something hypnotic, almost, in the manner in which she attends this task. Should you risk interrupting her? Do you dare? get the feeling that she would not appreciate it. The shovel in her hands, meanwhile, is rather hefty. If she wished it, she would cause you no small amount of damage with it. Cold anxiety makes your skin prickle. You do not know if you should risk speaking to her when she, in her dark cloak with her shovel, looks so very strange. But what do you have left to lose? You've come this far. It would be folly to turn back now. It is with this thought in your mind that you decide to approach the strange girl. Her footsteps are quiet. You've grown accustomed to slinking around like a cat, but they are not quiet enough. The girl's senses must be finely tuned, because she blinks. Then she turns. Your eyes meet, and once they do, you feel your breath catch in your throat. You did not have a clear view of the girl before, concealed as you were in the shadows, but now she is looking at you, and can tell that she is pretty. Her skin is very smooth, and her hair, though obscured by a dark hood, is very fair, classically so from the coloration. Her eyes, meanwhile, are clear, cool blue like ice. Those eyes of her, which are large with unease, are fringed with very long, fair eyelashes. She looks as though she has stepped out of the pages of a picture book. She is simply too perfect to belong to this world. Perhaps she is some kind of vision, awakened dream, a hallucination. But no, she is none of those things. The shovel she is clutching in her hands looks solid enough, its pointed tip glittering wickedly in the moonlight. You steel yourself, expecting perhaps some sort of outburst. The tension soon drains from the girl's slender shoulders. Fingers, which were once gripping the handle of her shovel tightly, relax. The lips curve upwards at the edges. She is smiling. And what a smile it is. It is transformative. When she smiles, she looks radiant, angelic almost. Hers is a smile that's so suffused with light, the eyes begin to prickle from it. You're so relieved, you almost feel as if you could cry. It would not be the first time you have wept during this night, and neither would it be too surprising if you did. You've been through a lot. You must be exhausted. The girl holding the shovel seems to realize this, because she bridges the distance between you cautiously, as one might approach a skittish cat. Then she says, in a rough voice which does not match her dainty appearance, well, she does live in a royal village, what were you expecting? It is so good to see another person. I'm afraid I was the only person left alive, the only one in the whole world. Now this is quite an effusive greeting. Her introductory speech is riddled with exclamation marks. She is rather more personal than her apparel would make one suggest. You, a well-bred young lady, can't help but feel overwhelmed. It's your turn now to be on guard. Anxiously, you observe the girl with the shovel, and you ask her what she means. What happened? Oh, do you not know? There's an awful lot you do not know. So much, in fact, it would fill a whole encyclopedia. No, a whole library. You shake your head, ashamed at your ignorance, and the girl frowns. You mustn't be from around these parts. I guess you should have known. This village is a small one, and everybody knows everybody else. The girl's expression falls. At least, they used to, back when there were still people to know. That ain't the case now, though. Not after the plague. There was a plague. That would certainly explain why the village, when you walked through it, was so quiet. Did everybody else succumb to this mysterious illness? That's right. It's just me here now. Not seen another human being in a long, long time. It gets so lonely here. Oh. Now that is an interesting turn of phrase indeed. Because that is the title. Catches inside your head like a burr. Have you heard it before? You don't have much time to ponder this, however, because the girl takes a step towards you. Oh, but where are my manners? You must have gone rusty after being on my own for so long. My apologies, miss. You look like you've come a long way. You said you were a traveler, yes? Your hands are very cold, just like ice. Would you like to come inside? Maybe have something warm to eat and drink? The home's small, I'm afraid, and my food ain't nothing fancy. But I'm more than willing to share. It's not every day another girl stops by, especially not as pretty as yourself. I'm feeling very blessed. The girl laughs. A carefree, airy sort of laugh which does not match your initial impression of her. You thought, when you saw her among the graves, that she would be more distant somehow, and more mysterious. Perhaps you're mixing her up with somebody else. You're still unsure if you can trust this girl, but her invitation is an appealing one. It is much more appealing, certainly, spending the night outdoors in the cold, kipping on the graves. What are you, a romantic poet? Please. You make a show of pondering the girl's invitation, at the very least. You do not want to appear too eager. But your acquiescence is, alas, an inevitability. How would you ever refuse her? She is the first friendly face you've seen all night. Without her, you would be all alone. Your hostess leads you to a small, humble home, located but a stone's throw away from the church. Built in the shadows of a twisted, towering sycamore. This girl's home is in such a state, it seems a folly to even call it a home. Hovel would to you be the more appropriate descriptor. When your hostess leads you inside, her eyes alive, and she says, "Here we are, home sweet home." You don't have much of heart to tell her that you don't find her home very homey or very sweet. It would be incredibly rude. As a guest, you ought to be more appreciative. Half-heartedly, you look around your newfound surroundings. The ceiling is supported by wooden joists, and is perilously low. Not so much that you're in danger of bumping your head, but just enough to feel claustrophobic. There's a fire in the corner, though it is not consigned to a grate. Fire, instead, is blazing in the open. A circle of logs set alight like a scene from a witch's kitchen. Above the fire hangs a silvery pot, suspended from one of the wooden eaves. Other objects of interest are hung from the eaves, iron implements you take to be cooking utensils, various herbs, and strips of meat left to cure. The smell of cooking fills the air, mingled with the sharp, sour scent of unwashed bodies. How, you wonder, does your hostess clean herself? You do not see a bathtub anywhere. Perhaps she does not possess one. The girl's home is unremarkable in every regard, but it is, you suppose, better than nothing. At least there is a roof over your head, and food to put in your belly. The girl looks to the pot, suspended over the fire, but she gives a stir with a ladle. Then she brings the ladle to her lips and tastes whatever concoction she has brewing within it. You can only hope that she is not, like the weird sisters from that famous play, brewing a broth with fenny snake fillets. Hey. Yes, I think this is just about done, the girl says to nobody in particular. I don't know what a fenny is, but snake fillets. I've not had snake. Wonder how it tastes. She sets the ladle down, back into the pot, then looks to you and smiles. Do you want something? Looks as though you've come quite the long way, and you must be hungry. These words are like music to your ears, even more divine than the trumpets of God's most loyal angels. You are so hungry. You could eat a horse. Not that there are any horses in the immediate vicinity. Express your interest to your hostess, who smiles in response, not yet. I thought you'd like the sound of that. Give me just a few moments. Your hostess retrieves 2 earthenware bowls from a cupboard with rickety hinges, into which she pours 2 hefty helpings of whatever it is she's cooking. This she serves with bread, which is so hefty it could be used as a murder weapon. It's not much, I'm afraid. It's only soup and bread. Should take the edge off your appetite, though. You thank your hostess for her hospitality, your stomach rumbling all the while. The soup does not look like anything you would typically consume, but the soup's poor presentation does not dissuade you. It's true enough that people eat first with their eyes, but when one is hungry enough, one becomes obliging enough to eat almost anything. Why else do you think that people, when stranded upon desert islands, will resort to cannibalism? Okay, I am... Humans are creatures of necessity. You like to wrap yourself up in pretensions, but in actuality, you are not much better than animals. I don't like where this is going, and I really find the narration uncomfortably suspicious. You're so hungry, your stomach is achingly empty, that you certainly descend upon your food like an animal. Your teeth glint, your incisors gleam. Soon, you have consumed all that your hostess has offered you. Your hostess watches while you eat. She giggles once you have finished. Did you enjoy that? Oh. Catch your hostess' gaze, suddenly abashed. You're so hungry you fail to account for her judgment. Now you have some food in your belly, though, and you've been suitably warmed. Your old self-consciousness is returning. Should you not make a fool out of yourself? You demur shyly, looking at your lap, fearful all the while of what your hostess might think of you. You do not want her to take against you. Fortunately for you, however, and for your fragile ego, your hostess is not the judgmental sort. She is not like the girls you grew up with. Oh. Curious, sir. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's nice to see my food being appreciated so heartily. I know I'm not the best, but I've been practicing for a long while. I used to cook for my father all the time, you see. This remark catches your attention. Physically, you look at your hostess, your abashment over your animalistic eating habits suspended. What happened to her father? Seems like a grim thing to contemplate after having eaten, but... Didn't your hostess mention something about a plague? Yes, your hostess says, her voice soft now and serious. That's right, there was a plague. Where are the villagers? What of her father? They're all gone now. Gone? Yes, you see. Your hostess re-engages herself upon her chair. One slender leg folded over the other. Then she begins her tale in earnest. Now, normally this is where I would cut off, but you know what? Let's continue. My family has a history. We've lived here for centuries, by the church, so that we can tend its graveyard. Ah, so there's a boat centuries older then. Certainly explained the dirt. My father used to prepare bodies for burial. Back when he was alive, he built the coffins, and he dug the graves, and he lowered the coffins into the dirt. I know it might sound like an awful job, but somebody's got to do it. There's no sense averting your eyes from death, not when it happens to the best of us. It's a noble profession, one that's been handed down in our family for generations. My father's father was a gravedigger, and so was my father's father's father. My father's 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 father. Digging graves is in our blood. It's who we are. My. That was a surprisingly pretty speech, coming from a girl who lives in the countryside. A girl is without so much in the way of education. It is apparent, just to listen to her, and the way she slurs her syllables together, that she has never had any elocution lessons. Not like you. There is a determination, however, to her and a pride in her genealogy, which gives her a respectable aura. You cannot help but to be impressed. So, you ask your hostess, does that make her one in a long line of gravediggers? Yes, your hostess, the gravedigger, says. That's about right, though I was never supposed to be a gravedigger myself. It's not a woman's profession. That's what everybody says. My father didn't mind that, though. He taught me everything he knew, and then some. I might be a woman, but I have plenty of upper body strength. I could dig a grave just as well as my father could, without breaking a sweat. To the despair of my mother up in heaven, I'm sure. I'm sure, if she were still alive, she'd rather I focus on more feminine pursuits, like basket weaving or sewing, to better attract a suitor. Not that that would do much good now. There's nobody around who'd court me, not for miles and miles. And what's happened to her mother? She died when I was very young, during childbirth. I was only 5 years old. Oh, well. You can relate to her, at least, upon this point. Your parents are not dead, at least not as far as you're aware, but you have not seen them in an awfully long time. They sent you away as soon as you're old enough, and they never once bothered to check up on you. Oh, this is... Oh. For many years, there have been no letters, nor any visits. You offer the gravedigger your condolences. You do not know if they will help, but you feel like you cannot say nothing. That would seem heartless. The gravedigger, however, does not seem too upset by this turn of events, because she smiles, albeit somberly. It's alright. That was ages ago. I don't remember her too well, and I've never really had the luxury of sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I've had too much work to do. Around the house, you ask? That, too. I was the oldest child, so it was my job, after my mother died, to manage the sweeping and the cooking, oh, and looking after all my siblings, too. You blink, intrigued, and glance about your hostess's humble lodgings. Oh no. You do not see any siblings in the immediate vicinity. Where could they be? The gravedigger must have noticed your roving eyes. You are not exactly being subtle, because she shakes her head. I had siblings, 2 younger brothers. They're both gone now. Oh. You should have known. You apologize to the gravedigger for your lack of tact, but she does not seem upset by this faux pas. Don't apologize. It's not your fault. My brothers weren't long for this world anyway. The youngest, he died when he was still a babe, and the oldest, he died before he reached double digits. I was upset about it at the time, of course, but I've come to terms with it. Life's a fleeting thing in this wicked old world. That's something you learn in this trade. Digging graves, I mean. I've dug graves for the elderly and the infirm, but I've also dug graves for young babes still in their swaddling clothes. That's the nature of death. It comes for all of us in the end, no matter how old we are, no matter how much money we have, no matter how good or how bad we've been. It's the great equalizer. Or so I've heard. A chill creeps down your spine as you listen to your hostess's speech. She is not wrong, but the inherent mortality of all humankind is not something you wish to contemplate. It is too disturbing. For the longest of times, my family was a small one. It was just my father and me. But that was fine. That's how I liked it. I was very happy, even if our lives weren't the best. I've never had any fancy clothes to wear, and we can't dine on the finest of foods. In the grand scheme of things, we ain't carrying anything that special, but I've always felt otherwise. But I was blessed. We knew hardship, of course, and famine. That's just the way life is around here. When food supplies were low, we always helped one another out. I had my father, but I also had the rest of the village. We all looked after one another. Things always worked out in the end. At least, they did. until the plague happened. Yes, she had mentioned a plague. They'd been wondering when she was going to return to that topic. I suppose that the plague is the reason the village, as you traversed it, was so very empty? You'd suppose, right. The plague tore through the village. I don't remember when. Feels like it was a while ago, but maybe it wasn't that long after all. Feels like I've been on my own for centuries, but... Your hostess's eyes begin to cloud over. She looks as though she's entrenched within her own memories. What could she be remembering? We've never seen a plague before. We've heard of them in your history lessons. Your history professor was quite enthusiastic about the subject. She talked about piles of dead bodies stacked up on the streets, stacked up in the wooden carts come to take them away with no shortage of aplomb. She was a strange woman, your history professor. The plague came on very suddenly. There was no warning. One day everyone was fine, and the next, they were all dead. This with no small amount of anxiety that you eye the gravedigger. And you ask worriedly, surely they could not have all died. Is that not an exaggeration? Oh, if only. I wish I was exaggerating, but it's the truth, honest to God. The people in the village died one after the other just like that. I saw what that plague does to people firsthand. My father was one of the first people who caught it. I think one of the bodies which came through that we buried must have had it. Not that I know for certain. I'm just guessing. Still. My father didn't have an easy time of it. His skin again turned all gray, clammy. He often complained of a horrible fever. There were night sweats and stomach cramps. And then there were boils. The boils? Pustules. They were the size of eggs, and they were full of pus. When they burst, it stunk. The whole house was full of it, the stink of death. The wise woman of the village came to see if she could be any use, but it was no good. My father was far too gone already. She took one look at him lying on his deathbed, and she shook her head. She said she didn't want to get any closer. I can't say I blame her. It was a ghastly sight. I didn't appreciate it at the time, though. It felt like she was turning her back on us. I wished her ill. I remember that after she left. So a few days passed, and she fell sick too. Oh no. Then I felt bad for cursing her. Couldn't help but worry it was all my fault. It's silly, I know, but... The gravedigger closes her eyes. She seems to squeeze her lids together, until her lashes melt like flecks of fallen snow. Her shoulders, which are very slender, are shaking. She looks as though she might at any moment fall apart. It wasn't long after that the rest of the village fell ill. They all had the same symptoms as my father. Clammy skin, the fever, and the boils. The boils grew, then they burst, and they died in screaming, stinking agony. My father died too, only 3 days after he fell ill. But I think even that was 3 days too many. Didn't want my father to die, of course. I did everything I could to help him. But it was all pointless. None of my herbal salves had any impact. Couldn't make a blind bit of difference. All I did was stand about his bedside telling him it'd be alright, until his eyes sank into his skull like two black stones and his mouth dried out. During that last day before he died, he might have been a corpse already. He didn't look at me. He didn't speak to me. He just lay in bed with his eyes closed, groaning. I never wished any ill on my father before, but during those moments The gravedigger squeezes her hands, which are resting upon her black-clad lap, into fists. She trembles. Then, in a voice throbbing with awful emotion, she says, I wish he just died. Well, based on her anecdote, it does not sound like she had overly long to wait. I wonder if she would consider that a silver lining. No. Perhaps not. The gravedigger is still shaking. She will not cry, will she? You hope not. Awkwardly, you look at the gravedigger. You're not sure how to soothe her. But you know you must make some sort of effort, even if it is a token one. You shift upon your chair, which feels very cold and hard beneath your thighs. And you say very softly that you are sorry. It's not much, but it's all you can think of saying. You thought initially that your situation was comparable to that of the gravedigger, but now you can see that this is not the case. Your suffering has far outstripped your own. Not that suffering is a competition, of course. Your apology feels inadequate to your ears, largely because it is, but the gravedigger does not seem to mind it. She's very big-hearted, that girl. Smile at you so, no matter how foolish you might be. Do you really deserve such kindness? Oh, again with the apologies. It's alright, like I said. You didn't cause any of this. I'm not upset at you, I'm just recounting what's happened, that's all. I do wonder, though, why I never fell sick myself. Thought I was going to die, so I'd already prepared for the Reaper to come and take me away. Maybe he wasn't interested. Maybe he already satiated his appetite and all the others. That, or maybe he thought he'd have to leave me alive for practicality's sake. With my father gone, who else would tend to the dead? I was the only person left by the end of it all, so as I'd had to bury the people in the village. They're all resting peacefully now, under the earth, where the plague can't reach them. On the one hand, I'm happy for them. They were able to escape from all their suffering. When I think about all the people I've lost, though, Gravedigger tenses. Then she sniffs. But I thought to climb the washerwoman who helped me scrub the mud and dirt from my clothes. I don't want to read this, but I do. Aha! So this village did have its fair share of washerwomen after all. It seemed your earlier insistence upon this particular point was not without merit. And I had some young farmhands who used to flirt with me. The priest who preached at the church, he told us wonderful tales of paradise. The children would skip stones on the lake and play hopscotch in the streets. I can't help but feel so lonely. The gravedigger's eyes begin to shine when she has finished her address with tears, but she does not let them fall. She's being very brave, much more so than you are. Anxiously extend a hand towards her, meaning to... what? Give her a hug? You do not know her well enough. Pat her head? That would be infantilizing. Squeeze her hand. Perhaps that can be misconstrued as a romantic overture, but that's the last thing you want. You endured more than your fair share of teasing over that. Sit there for a few moments, paralyzed by indecision as the gravedigger poorly suppresses her sniffles. In the end, you let your arm drop back by your side. Your hand rests upon your lap, as useful as damp kindling. You do not know what to do with it. You do know that you ought to say something, though, to show that you heard her plight, and that you care. You do not know what this something should be, however. No words could ever console the gravedigger. They would never be enough. You can offer some balm, however, to the bereaved. So, after a pause just long enough to be awkward, you offer your condolences. What else can you say? Oh, no. It's alright. The gravedigger replies, wiping a few straight tears away with the back of her arm. I've grown used to it, really. Being on my own, I mean. It ain't so bad, really. I'm not alone now, at least. I've met you. You'll keep me company, won't you? Well, what can you say to that? You aren't callous enough to trample this poor girl's hopes, are you? You know full well yourself how awful that feels. You can do nothing but nod. A response which makes this girl smile more widely still. That's wonderful. I know you're just a traveler who's passing through. I can offer you bread and
Bored until you leave. Have food enough and a spare bedroom. They make it up for you right now. You must be tired after your long journey. Just give me a moment. The gravedigger rises to her feet in a flurry of excitement, then retreats. You watch as she departs, a little too eager to please, and frown. The girl's home is small, a small, humble one with a low ceiling and slanted walls. You cannot imagine such a small dwelling possessing a spare bedroom. The so-called spare bedroom is, in all likelihood, the room her father slept in before the plague carried him off. I do not think that you would much like to spend the night in the room of a dead man, but what choice do you have? You're tired, wretchedly so. Why, it is all you can do to keep your eyes open. While you were running through the forest, desperate to escape your pursuer, you had no thought in your mind beyond finding some safe sanctuary in which you could recuperate. Now that you have found said sanctuary, it would be unreasonable to find faults with it. You ought to learn to be more thankful for what you have. There are many, many people in the world with less. You rise and follow the gravedigger, once she has finished her preparations, to her so-called spare bedroom, which is every bit as cramped as you feared it would be. At least there is a bed, which comes as something of a relief. The rest of these lodgings are so humble you are half expecting a straw pallet. As tired as you might be, you cannot lie to yourself. You have no desire to sleep among the hay like an animal. The sheets of the bed are clean, too. In fact, you discern with a cursory glance. So you will not be expected to sleep upon the sweat-soaked linen of a plague-riddled man after all. This really is your lucky day. I got you this, too, the gravedigger says, somewhat shyly. She hands you a folded gown to sleep in. I thought it might come in handy. Your own clothes are, a little shabby. She can say that again. Your skirt is covered in mud, and the hem is torn and ragged. This nightgown is one of my old ones, so it's suffered a bit of wear and tear, but I hope it'll fit alright. It's clean if nothing else. You can accept the nightgown from your benefactress with words of thanks. You want to sound appropriately appreciative, but you cannot mask your fatigue. Weariness overcomes you and you yawn. In fact, the gravedigger does not fail to notice. Oh, begging your pardon. I don't want to keep you. I'll be making myself scarce. If you need anything, though, don't hesitate to ask. I'd be happy to help. The gravedigger bows her head to you like a drudge, and hurries off, closing the door behind her with a thud. Tired though you are, you soon find that you rather miss your hostess's company. In the face of her good-natured smiles, you could almost forget all the hardships you have hitherto endured. In her absence, however, your lodgings feel almost unbearably cold and inhospitable. You suppress a shudder, then unclothe yourself. You work as quickly as you're able, but your fingers are cold. They fumble with the buttons of your blouse. It takes you more time than you would like to complete this endeavor, but soon you have your shirt and your skirt dispensed with. You're too tired to fold them neatly, so you do not bother to fold them at all. Instead, you cast them carelessly upon the floor, as defiant as a sulky child, and put on your new nightgown. Your hostess's earlier warnings were apt enough. It is quite worn, but it fits well enough. It is more comfortable, at least, than your old uniform. Uniform? You have endured worse? Newly dressed and ready for bed, you loosen your hair from your braids and settle down among the sheets. Excuse me for a second, I'm gonna... Ah. So that button is just to get a better look at the picture. Okay. I'll have to do that next time we see our hostess. This is a long one. So entrancing, too. It is with a sigh you extinguish the weakly flickering candlelight which burns upon your bedside. With another sigh that you lay your head down upon your pillow. Though physically exhausted, you have to wonder whether you'll be able to sleep at all. You can recall your previous dash to the forest in such vivid detail that your heart is still pounding. That fear is yet to leave you. Perhaps it'll never leave you. Your terror was such, it almost felt as though it had suffused itself into your bones, your very being. But your exhaustion is greater than your worldly anxieties. Soon it claims you. Your eyelids fall shut, and your breathing inevitably begins to even out. It is not long until you're spiraling into a deep, dark abyss, into Morpheus's kingdom.